Real Madrid doesn't do transitions. They don't do patience. They don't sit down, breathe, and think, okay, how do we rebuild this? No, what they do is reach into a drawer, pull out a familiar face, and say, this is the guy. Done. Next. In January 2026, Xabi Alonso, one of the most admired coaches in world football, was sacked after just 233 days in charge. A club legend, the man who made Bayer Leverkusen Bundesliga champions, gone. And who replaced him? Álvaro Arbeloa, his former teammate, a man who had been coaching the reserve team for less than 7 months. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't an accident. This is a pattern. Real Madrid doesn't rebuild. They replace. They always have. And today, we're going to break down exactly how deep this really runs. Let's start with what just happened, because the Xabi Alonso story is literally the perfect example of everything we're talking about today. When Alonso arrived at the Bernabeu in May 2025, the whole football world was watching. This was a massive appointment. He had just completed one of the most remarkable coaching runs in recent memory, taking Bayer Leverkusen to their first ever Bundesliga title, going the entire league season completely unbeaten. He turned down Liverpool. He turned down Bayern Munich. He chose Real Madrid. 3-year contract. This felt like the beginning of something special, and for a while, it looked exactly like that. Alonso won 24 of his 34 games. La Liga was looking great. Fans were fully on board. But then things fell apart at speed. First came a brutal 4-0 hammering by PSG at the Club World Cup. Then the defeats to Manchester City. Then a 5-2 derby destruction by Atletico Madrid at the Bernabeu at home. The dressing room was cracking too. On January 11th, 2026, Real Madrid lost 3-2 to Barcelona in the Supercopa final in Jeddah. After the final whistle, Mbappe was reportedly filmed completely ignoring Alonso. Less than 24 hours after landing back in Madrid, Alonso was gone. Just like that. And who did Florentino Perez call? Arbeloa, a man who played right back for the club from 2009 to 2015, making 238 appearances. A man who had only been managing Castilla, the reserve team, since June 2025. 7 months running the B team. Now, the head coach of Real Madrid. Maybe Arbeloa surprises everyone. Maybe this is brilliant. But that's not the point. The point is, the instant things went wrong, Real Madrid didn't look outward. They didn't bring in someone new. They turned inward, grabbed a familiar face drenched in club DNA, and handed him the job with zero hesitation. That is textbook Real Madrid, and it has happened before many times. Here's the thing though. Arbeloa is not even close to the first person they've done this with. Real Madrid has basically turned the Castilla promotion route into a formal feature of how they operate. Go back to January 2016. Rafa Benitez was struggling, results were bad, and Madrid needed someone fast. Florentino Perez turned to Zinedine Zidane, a man who had been managing Castilla, the reserve team, for just over a year. Zero experience at the senior level. Zero track record in professional football as a manager. Florentino didn't care. He handed Zidane the full keys to the club. What followed? 3 consecutive Champions League titles. Back to back to back. The greatest European run in the history of club football. You genuinely cannot argue with that. And you completely understand why Real Madrid became hooked on this idea after that. But then Zidane left in 2018 on a high, and Madrid tried something different for once. They brought in Julen Lopetegui, a proper, experienced head coach with real credentials. He lasted 4 months. A 5-1 humiliation at Barcelona finished him off. So what did Madrid do immediately? Straight back to Castilla. Santiago Solari, another former player and reserve team coach, was promoted mid-season to steady the ship. Solari did fine for a period, then crashed completely. Back-to-back Clásico defeats and a shocking 4-1 home loss to Ajax in the Champions League. He was gone in 5 months. And who came back? Zidane. Again. Same corridor, same logic. So to lay this out clearly, Zidane from Castilla in 2016, the outsider Lopetegui tried and gone in 4 months, then Solari from Castilla, then Zidane again, then Ancelotti, then Alonso from Leverkusen is the exception, the outside appointment, gone in 233 days. Now Arbeloa from Castilla, 3 different eras, 3 different generations of players. Same reflex every single time. When Real Madrid face a crisis, there is one road they always take, and it runs straight from the reserve training pitch to the Bernabeu dugout. The coaching pattern is one thing, but this replace don't rebuild mentality goes just as deep when it comes to the actual players, and nowhere is that clearer than the midfield situation over the last few years. For nearly a decade, Casemiro, Toni Kroos and Luka Modric were the engine of Real Madrid and genuinely the best midfield trio in world football. 3 Champions Leagues back-to-back. They were the reason Madrid could survive elite-level pressure on pure control and experience. Then, Casemiro left for Manchester United in 2022. Kroos retired in the summer of 2024. Modric departed that same summer after 13 remarkable years. 3 generational players gone within 2 years. Did Madrid rebuild the midfield? No. Did they go and actually sign a proper Kroos replacement? A deep playmaker who controls tempo, dictates the game and stays composed under pressure? No. The club's logic was that Bellingham, Valverde, Tchouaméni and Camavinga would collectively figure it out. Talented group? Absolutely. But none of them are that profile. None of them can organise a game from deep the way Kroos did. That is not an opinion. Even their own players knew it. What makes this almost poetic is that Xabi Alonso himself reportedly went to the club in summer 2025 and asked for one specific thing: a creative central midfielder, someone like Zubimendi, who could control the game from deep. The club said no, told him to manage with what was available, and then fired him when the midfield looked disjointed under pressure. You genuinely cannot make this stuff up. It goes back even further. When Cristiano Ronaldo left for Juventus in 2018, Modric himself admitted it was almost impossible to replace a player scoring 50 goals per season. Rather than actually signing a direct replacement, Madrid distributed the responsibility across the squad and hoped for the best. Former President Ramon Calderón has been openly critical about it, saying the club failed to properly plan for the departures of Kroos and Modric, and that the midfield suffered visibly because of it. Real Madrid's mentality with players mirrors their mentality with coaches. Don't restructure, don't rethink the system. Bring in the next star name, trust the badge, and assume everything works itself out. For 15 Champions League titles, that instinct has paid off more than it hasn't. But right now, in 2026, the gap between that philosophy and what the squad actually needs is impossible to ignore. Real Madrid's philosophy is simple. Don't rebuild the house, just redecorate. Whether it's managers or midfielders, their answer to losing greatness is always the same. Find a familiar face and keep moving. For a club with 15 Champions League titles, you can argue it's worked. But the cracks? They're getting harder and harder to paper over.